And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 325 of This Old Marketing for Thursday, May 26th, 2022. And with me, as always, my good friend, my colleague, and let's face it, the only guy who hasn't yet testified in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, Mr. Joe Polizzi.
Do you think that they're purposely drawing this out for?
Oh, you think?
For media ratings? They're getting pleas from the networks and social media personalities to just keep this going as long as possible?
Here, probably not, but it is one of those things where, and I will be the first to admit, I am not following this closely. I am watching this from afar. You know, it's a little bit like I watch. It's like how I follow baseball this time of year, right? I see the box scores, I read some of the analysis, but I'm not paying attention to the games. So, you know, it strikes me that, you know, a pox on all your houses, right? I mean, it's like, the whole thing is just icky. It's just icky all the way around. And, you know, and battle lines have been drawn here, right? I mean, there's no, you know, there are very few people who are following this closely who don't have a very strong opinion one way or the other about who's in the right here. So, I think it makes, I would not be surprised if you are right, if the networks are like, oh, please let this thing go on another, you know, bring somebody else in, but it's just such a circus. It's a complete circus.
Yeah, I don't, as you know, I don't follow the news at all these days for the most part, but I know two things. I know when Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show's coming out on Disney Plus
this week.
Tomorrow, I believe, as we record this.
Friday,
or today, as people listening to this. And I also know that Stranger Things is coming out. I know those two things.
That is correct as well. And Star Trek episode tonight. So,
of your new one?
I'm sure it's out now, right? I'm sure it's out now, but I always think of it as Thursday night because, you know, that's when I watch it. But I'm sure. Well,
I was ready to cancel my Paramount Plus because, you know, we talked about the whole Picard thing. But I've kept it. Yep. I'm going to keep it because I want to watch your first episode of the new Star Trek because you've been raving about it. And I'm going to go back.
Oh, for sure.
I'm going to go back.
Yeah, watch the first one's great. The second one is actually, interestingly enough, I think what we're going to see more of, sort of it's probably closer to the average of what's going to happen. But the first one is absolutely brilliant. It's just, I mean the whole thing. I mean, it's just, I get excited.
Okay, hey, this is it's. I know how excited you can be and should be about a good Star Trek story. I mean, you are exactly a Trekkie through and through, and I always liked the movies. So I mean, well, you know, I mean, for people listening to this, I grew up on Next Generation. So we used to watch it when I was in college. We all get together because I was in a co-ed dorm on the fourth floor, and you had the guys on one side and the girls on the other, and we all came together in the sitting room that had one television, and we got together and watched. I think it was Sunday night at that time, if that's correct.
Yep, absolutely, Sunday night.
We watched. So all the geeks got together in the honors dorm, and we watched Star Trek. It was fantastic.
Well, see here, and that's the thing for us that are a little bit older or appreciate the original series more. This is really the first series that gives so much fan service to the original Star Trek. So much fan service in lieu of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and some of the other 90s and early 2000 series. But this one really just gives a lot of fan service to the original series, which is just great. It's just great. Anyway,
yeah.
So make another episode about Star Trek.
So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my family holiday.
Well, yes. I mean, did you get to Wally World? Did you know? Sorry, folks. Park's closed.
You know what? Almost happened.
I know.
I'm not kidding. I had, for whatever reason, when I checked the schedule and did this whole planning, there are 2 parks in particular that changed their schedule that were open on Monday and then were closed on Monday.
Yeah.
And so I had to and I'm lucky that I checked, because I'm really obsessive and anal about my plans and my planning and the hotels and the parks. And just to give you a little bit of background for those people that didn't know what I was doing, this was my oldest graduation from high school present that is now 2 years late, because this was planned for April of 2020. And now we got to go on this trip to California where we were going to go to 5 theme parks. And so, but at that time we were going to do like a 10-day vacation. We put this all into 6 days. So we did 5 theme parks in 6 days, started in Los Angeles, ended up in San Francisco, and did the whole thing. But basically we did a Cedar Fair Park, Knott's to start with. Then we did Disneyland. Then we did a Six Flags Park. Then we traveled up to San Francisco and did another Six Flags Park and another Cedar Fair Park. But this was supposed to happen and go through until Monday. We were going to do basically 3 parks, day off, and 2 parks. But we had to do 5 in a row because I checked and the one park wasn't open on Monday. So I'm like, oh, geez, that would have been horrible. So I had to do some figuring, had to check on the hotel, make sure we were okay. But all in all, fantastic trip. My oldest, who loves roller coasters, was able to get on 36 different coasters over the 5.
Oh my!
I know, right?
Gracious.
And
that's impressive. That is impressive.
Very impressive. And all the parks had their own unique, wonderful factors about them. Obviously, the Cedar Fair parks and the Six Flags parks were mostly, about the roller coasters and the rides. But I got to tell you, Robert, I did not realize how much I would love Disneyland. And I mean...
Oh, yeah. Disneyland's great. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I know there's people that don't say it's too expensive, and it probably is, but it is so worth it. Star Wars Land or whatever was amazing.
Yeah. Disneyland is actually better than Disney World, I find.
That's interesting. I haven't been to Disney World in a long time, since the kids were really, really small. But this is the first time I've ever been to Disneyland. And I saw, basically, my recommendation is get the Genie Plus service. It's really not...
Oh, pay the $1 million or whatever it is for the cut-in-line pass and the, VIP this and, just anything you can do to do... it changes the entire experience.
It absolutely does. And by the way, the Genie Plus Pass, which is like their Fast Lane or Fast Pass, it's like $30 more a person. It's not, you're already paying hundreds of dollars for the ticket. You absolutely have to get the Genie Plus. So basically you say, okay, which ride? And you go ahead, and basically it's like you're standing in line without standing in line. And they'll say, oh, you can get in line in an hour, or you can get in a line right now. Depending on how the lines are. And so you go ahead and do that. And that saved us so much time and energy. And then we also went to Disney, I guess it's called California Adventure, which is right next door. We had the Park Hopper Pass.
Yep.
That's amazing. Yeah. Like we went to Cars Land, and I just fell in love. I would have stayed. We left at like 10:30 at night. I'd have stayed past midnight, but 2 of our gang were like toast, because we were still jet lagged from the plane.
Here's the thing. I know exactly which 2 you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. But it was a great trip. I cannot say enough about the experience of Disney. Everything about Disney was so much better than the other parks. And I know it's a 365-day a year park versus only open in extended summer, if you will. But they've got everything right. They've got the customer service down. They've got when I walked in, I felt like I was in a different place, and it just
Now you went to Six Flags too, yes?
We went to Six Flags, which is, it's not Six Flags Great America. It's Magic Mountain, Six Flags Magic Mountain, exactly, and then we did Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in north of San Francisco.
Right.
So did those as well. Now, Magic Mountain is great. If you like coasters, I think they have 18 or 19 coasters.
They do, yeah. That's where I used to go all the time. Is to Six Flags Magic Mountain. We used to go back. I haven't been in 20 years, but that's where we used to go all the time because it was a little more. It was a little more roller coastery than Disney.
Oh yeah, if you like roller coasters, don't go to Disney. Like absolutely go to Six Flags or we have a Cedar Fair park right next to us in Cleveland in Sandusky, Ohio, called Cedar Point, the original one. So our pass is good at all those other places. So we were able to get in at the other two for free as part of the pass. But so I'd say, anyways, Disney floored me. I'm more of a Disney fan than I've ever been before. The kids were already talking about having to go to Disney World, and I'm like, come on, what? I said, you're so spoiled. Anyways, we did that, but we ended up the trip. We had a 2:00 flight, which got delayed until 5 on the last day. But we said, okay, we're close enough. We were in Silicon Valley. We said, let's go to Cupertino. And we went to Apple headquarters. And they have a little Apple visitor center. They have a couple of stores there on campus that you can get exclusive shirts and things that you can't get anywhere else. But the thing that surprises me, Robert, is they could do so much with that. Like they could have a museum. They could, there's really, if you're a huge Apple fan, outside of buying a t-shirt at a regular Apple store, you really can't do much more than go buy a coffee in the gift shop.
That's right.
Why is that?
Yeah, well, I think probably because I don't think it matches their brand. I don't think they want to make the Apple brand a theme park, right? They're not. I think that's part of the mystique is that it's not available in the, it's sort of like the absence of the, that experience is what makes the brand special.
I hear what you're saying, and that's probably why they haven't done it. But I think it's a lost opportunity because I'm a loyal.
Yeah, but think about it in think about it in the scheme of how much brand value it has versus how much revenue it would provide. It would be a drop in the bucket of revenue.
I wouldn't do it for revenue. I would absolutely not do it for revenue. I would do it for the fact that I've become a more loyal Disney customer.
Well, but Disney's a different brand than Apple, I think, in that regard.
They're both premium consumer brands. They're in some cases
but very
luxury.
different, but very different brands than a consumer. They are both arguably premium brands, but I would argue one is more of a luxury brand and a mystique brand. That's Apple, and Disney is much more of a democratized, everyman's brand.
Maybe. Some people would disagree with that because of how much it costs to go to Disney World.
Well, let me put it this way. Would your kids be as into the T-shirts if every person in Disney was walking around with an Apple T-shirt? They wouldn't. Part of the mystique, I'm answering for you. Part of the mystique and the reason that they want the Apple T-shirt from the headquarters of Apple is because it's hard to get. And making it easier to get removes some of that mystique. And so it removes some of the cred around walking around with that T-shirt on. Like when you walk around with that T-shirt on and it's only available at that small little store in Cupertino and, et cetera, people go, ooh, where did you get that? And you don't say, well, I got it at the Apple theme park in California. You go, no, I got it at the special store that only people can go to if you get there and have a ticket and blah, blah, blah. It keeps a level of inaccessibility to the brand, which is what Apple has made a name for, right? It's made for those who consider themselves different and weird and, iconoclastic.
Sure. I think it's a huge lost opportunity, in my opinion. Yeah. I think they could keep all those things in place and still add something to that experience. Because I felt bad. There were a lot of people there. Like, we just did that on a whim. It was a 30-minute drive, not that far out of the way. There were a lot of people that were there that I could see that came there just to go there. And if you just come to go there, you're very disappointed if you don't do the work ahead of time because you think there's more, but there's not. There's nothing outside of getting your T-shirt.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
Couldn't they have something?
I hear what you're saying.
They put billions of dollars into that campus. There's a freaking spaceship shaped corporate headquarters that they have there, and then 1,100.
But that's a whole other thing. Like, people aren't showing up to work there, right? So it may become an artifact of the early 21st century about, hey kids, here's the way people used to work. They used to show up to shiny glass boxes and go inside. It's like, what?
Now they all stay at home.
People actually, now everybody works from coffee shops.
It's so crazy. Anyways, we can stop our argument about that. We know that I'm right on this one, but that's fine.
There we go.
We had a great time.
There we go.
And thanks for producing early last week so that we could make that happen. And
well, speaking of producing early, we've got a cool show. We're going to talk a little bit about the thing that has sort of become a little bit of a meme on Twitter over the last few days. Somebody stole Seth Green's Bored Ape, and he was going to make a TV show. Aw, can we get a collective aw for Seth Green? We'll talk a little bit about that. Conan O'Brien's podcast network was just acquired by SiriusXM. Seems like everything is a podcast these days, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk maybe a little bit about YouTube and how they're creating a new invite-only project for creators. YouTube yet throwing more spaghetti against the wall to get creators to get on the platform. And we'll talk about Google and how a new bill could force Google to shutter part of its ad business. Antitrust finally coming to roost. And if we've got time, we'll talk about TikTok and their adventure getting into games. I'm going to have a little bit of commentary also about Google and a lawsuit that's been filed against them, as well as this company that everybody is, experiencing, but nobody's talking about, this media company that is out there doing a lot of things that I can't figure out why nobody's talking about. And you're going to talk a little bit about Andreessen Horowitz and their
there's a new state of crypto report that I want to make sure we get in the show notes and talk a little bit about a new creator economy report as well. So there you go.
Fantastic. So just a chock-a-block full of
amazing
show, content, media, and all sorts of things coming off the heels of a roller coaster. And so we'll open with the always, let's call it the Iron Lady of ridiculous news, and that is BuzzFeed. The headline here, which caught everybody's attention, it seems, is someone stole Seth Green's Bored Ape, which was supposed to star in his new TV show. And the article opens up by saying the actor's been pleading on Twitter to DarkWing84, which is the perfect foil for this, by the way. It's just the story can't write itself any more compellingly, who bought his ape from a scammer to return it, actually. So actor and producer Seth Green was robbed of several NFTs this month after succumbing to a phishing scam that inadvertently threw a monkey wrench into the plan for his new animated series. The forthcoming show was developed from characters in Green's expansive NFT collection, but in light of the recent hack, the project's blatant crypto optimism has been tragically ironic for the industry's shadier side. On Saturday, Green teased a trailer for the White Horse Tavern at the NFT conference VCon, a twee comedy, it says. Boy, they belabor that. The show seems to be based on the question, what if your friendly neighborhood bartender was a Bored Ape Yacht Club number 8398 in the show that absolutely nobody asked for. So do you have a take on this? Have you been following this story of late? It seems to be very much like the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial. There seems to be two very distinct sides of this. One is like, basically losers weep, or we feel really sorry for you and trying to get your NFT back.
I think there's a couple things to talk about here. First of all, I think we just need to talk about if you are collecting, buying, storing NFTs, you have to absolutely be careful. And I read this story as you shared it with me. And Seth Green is not new to the NFT game and basically got taken in this phishing scam. So basically, just sending out a warning. If you get a direct message from anyone, it could look like your best friend with a link in it, especially if you're on Discord or Twitter, you do not click on it. Do not click until you know for sure that, because once you click on something and you have a hot wallet, which means it's a wallet connected to the website at that current time, you could lose everything you have. So just a reminder, if you do this, you should have a cold wallet, something like a ledger, which looks like basically a hard drive that can keep your NFTs on separately. Don't put them all in one place. Of course, we're very early days in this, but you have to learn to store these properly. And if you're going to practice on NFTs that aren't worth very much outside of a Bored Ape. Okay, so there's that. Robert, I felt we needed to put that out there because there's absolutely things that you should do. And
well, especially when you spend $250,000 on something, probably not best to have it in the cache of your browser. Just
yeah,
saying.
I mean, basically, probably had it in a MetaMask hot wallet. I'm not sure why. If it would have been offline in a cold wallet on a device, wouldn't have had this problem. But it happens. So, just make sure that everybody's aware of this. So I think the thing that we really want to talk about, though, is and you and I had this discussion a few episodes ago about, Bored Ape, Yacht Club, great. NFTs, they're giving out the licensing to their owners. But this isn't a case, this is backfiring. I don't know if it backfires on the Bored Ape community at all. We can talk about that if you want. But
it totally does.
Yeah,
I would absolutely posit.
And that's where it's interesting that I listened to, and we talked about this. I listened to the Kevin Rose podcast with Gary Vaynerchuk, and Gary was saying, "I love Bored Ape, the project," but he disagreed with the fact that you should not give out all your IP and licensing because then it can go, IP run amok. And anybody can do anything. And you could get, like, for example, maybe this actually happens and this White Horse Tavern NFT Bored Ape show comes out and it's horrible and it hurts the brand. Well, that hurts every owner. And it's just because of one person.
And there's your conspiracy theory, by the way, if you're looking for
it. Yeah. Right? I'd love to hear you always have a conspiracy theory. So let's hear this one.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, so I have two takes on this. One is on that particular thing, which is, if we look at what actually happened here, because if you read the Twitter thread and you read the articles that are sort of talking this through, it does come down to everybody. Everybody seems to be saying, well, they're correcting him in many ways by saying what got stolen wasn't the art. The art remains where it is. It remains linked, as a hyperlink to something that is hosted on a website somewhere. And the art is fine and has always remained in the same place. What got stolen was his certificate of ownership. Yes. And so the question isn't, because a lot of people said, well, it got stolen. It's not like if, somebody steals my car, I still own the car. Yes, you do, but it's not that. It's very different. What has happened here is that the right analogy would be the title of ownership you inadvertently signed over to somebody else, so you don't own the car anymore. Yeah. And you can argue about whether he was scammed out of this or whether he was it's his own damn fault and he should actually have to pay it back. And mistake made, and you gotta cough up the money because you made a huge mistake, or whether it was fraud and you can actually go after the person who committed the fraud. All of those things are, I guess, active arguments. The point being is that when you start to look at what's actually going on here, it's the power and the responsibility of this idea of new forms of ownership. If you believe in the blockchain and you believe in that ownership gets transferred like this without an intermediary, like a contract place where you like a DMV where you store your title of ownership, well, you live and die by the sword, and that's kind of the new thing. And so, as we work out the muscle here and start to develop the infrastructure for this is only going to get worse. This is only going to get worse, and it will take a court and probably some intervention at the government level to make this actually happen.
Because otherwise, what actually happened? The
actual idea of what crime, if any, was committed here.
To Yeah. So basically, in my opinion, nothing can be done.
I agree.
There's
I agree.
nothing,
At this point, nothing.
And here's the thing. And Seth Green wants to launch. So basically, he wants to launch the show using the IP rights that he did own. So they were stolen and then sold legitimately to DarkWing84, whatever. So DarkWing84 owns the IP per everything that the Bored Ape community stands for and in their smart contract. So if Seth Green continues to go and launch this movie, DarkWing84 can file a lawsuit against Seth Green.
Of course. Yeah. He can file a cease and desist. It's copyright violation.
Right. And the only way for him to get it back is he has to spend the money and buy it back from Darkwing, which I don't think is selling it because he put it into a different... He doesn't seem like he's responding, or whoever Darkwing is responding.
He hasn't said a peep that I can find. He hasn't said a peep, or she, or, they, right? They have not said a word in terms of anything on this. My conspiracy theory is that Seth has orchestrated this whole thing in order to drive up some level of interest and get media coverage. That's the conspiracy theory.
So you think that Seth could theoretically be DarkWing84?
I don't know that he's DarkWing84, but I wouldn't surprise me to find out later that, there's been an agreement reached and that DarkWing84 will relinquish control for an undisclosed sum back to Seth Green, and Seth Green will go ahead and move forward with his fancy new show based on, and part of the storyline will just magically be that this bartender that is the Bored Ape was kidnapped, and that becomes part of the mythology of the launch of the show or whatever. That would not surprise me if that happened. It would also not surprise me to learn if it somehow came out that elements of the Bored Ape community orchestrated some of this in order to prevent the show from coming out. Because just to your point with the IP rights, they all live and die by however people use the Bored Ape as part of a character of content. And if people got wind that like the show wasn't that good, or people don't really like Seth Green, or they were worried about it and sort of said, hey, listen, we need, you could just imagine the sort of mafioso-like conversation happening in a dark Discord room. We got to stop this kid before he does anything. We gonna stop. I'm gonna go cap his knees. No, cap his knees. Actually, just send him an email with a phishing thing that'll take his hot wallet away. It's like,
oh my god, yeah,
it's like.
That all could be possible, Robert. Or it could be just the fact that he clicked on the wrong link, which happens all the time. Yeah. To even the most sophisticated wallet owners, if you will, which is what I think happened. I think the bigger issue that we've got to keep in mind is that read these smart contracts and what you have the rights to do and what you don't have the rights to do, and then you have to live and die by what happens. We have our I feel really bad too. One of our never-ending ticket NFT holders got their wallet compromised and lost their NFT. And said, can I still come to the event? And basically, I saw what happened. You could see it. You could see somebody pilfering their wallet, taking it out, and it was gone. And I said, well, you don't own a never-ending ticket. I can't let you into the VIP, but I was saying, I'll give you a ticket, of course. I feel bad. But yeah, I mean, it happens. Because that person doesn't own it anymore, and I can't do anything about that. So it's weird. It really, when I first got into it, I thought it was really strange, where you literally, there's nothing you can do if something happens.
But did the person who now owns it, they didn't show up,
the person who now owns it, I don't know. They haven't done anything with it. It's just sitting there. They didn't come to the event. We could have tracked it, because they would have actually had to log in, work through our system in order to register for the event, but they never did. It just sat quiet.
But here's the question. Would you have respected the ticket?
Boy, that's a great question. I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I probably said, we have knowledge that this is a stolen one, and I'm not, and I can't do anything because you own that NFT, but I'm not going to let you into the event.
And therein lies the judgment question, right? Because if we go back to Seth, if he goes, listen, I'm gonna do this. Everybody knows it was stolen. Everybody knows it was mine. I'm just gonna go ahead with my show and let the thief sue me. But it's not necessarily. Darkwing isn't the thief, and Darkwing would be perfectly within their right to.
That's
sue.
right. That's different. So basically, go back to the situation.
But should Darkwing be able to do a show? Like, should
Darkwing can do anything they want to because they purchase it legitimately.
It's so good. It's just it's so silly. It's literally a comic book story. I mean, Darkwing versus Seth Green.
This used to be a legitimate podcast where we talked about legitimate marketing things. Now we're talking about Darkwing.
Oh my gosh,
NFTs.
Darkwing.
This is crazy. Anyways,
it is absolutely nuts, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's what's so fun about this
these days. And now, a word from today's sponsor, Superside. Hey there, gang. This is Joe. Question for you. Have you ever worked with a big design agency? Well, I have, and I didn't enjoy it one bit. Long wait times, too many revisions, and the cost. This is too much for me to handle. So I have to tell you, I was pretty pleased to learn about Superside, a one-stop shop for good design. I'm kind of liking their unique subscription service that gives you access to designers from around the world, and the design process, well, you absolutely need to check it out. In talking with the good folks from Superside, they said This Old Marketing listeners can expect 20 times faster results than an in-house team, a 50% cost reduction, and 70% faster. I was thinking about that. So if I was running a 100-meter dash and using Superside, and you were using an in-house team or a big design agency, I'd be finished, and you'd be at the 30-meter mark. Okay, well, not the best example, but you get the point. Superside is offering a 1-month credit to This Old Marketing listeners when signing up for an annual subscription. That's a $3,000 value. Go to superside.com/L/thisoldmarketing, superside.com/L/thisoldmarketing, or just click on the link in the show notes. And please do that so Superside knows where you heard this from, and they will continue to support this show. Scale your design, add capacity without headcount, keep in-house team focused, and easily store and share files. Check out Superside. And now, back to your favorite marketing show.
It's just fantastic. Well, all right. So moving on to our next story here, which is another totally fun, interesting, but a little more grounded in reality. I think, comes to us courtesy of The Verge, with the guy with the best hair, Conan OBrien, who has now made a $150 million podcast deal. The article opens up by saying, after bottomless headlines about podcast licensing deals, I guess getting acquired is cool again. Or maybe Conan just tired. I'm tired, and I didn't even spend 3 decades as the good king of late night. Well, this article author making it all about them for some reason. Anyway, SiriusXM has acquired Conan OBrien's podcast network. So much for sticking to multi-tier deals, said this author. SiriusXM, on Monday, the audio giant announced that it has acquired Conan OBrien's production company, Team Coco, and locked the comedian down in a 5-year talent contract at a reported $150 million. The transaction is by no means the industry's largest, but it's a callback to the kind of M&A that was happening before top podcasters embraced licensing agreements. Team Coco, which was established in 2010, shortly after the end of O'Brien's ill-fated run on The Tonight Show, has become a podcasting force thanks to the success of its flagship show, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. Edison recently ranked the show at number 26. They've also expanded to include popular series from like Why Won't You Date Me with Nicole Byer and Literally with Rob Lowe. Licensing rights to which now belongs to SiriusXM. According to the company, Team Coco brings in 180 million downloads a year. So the article goes on, obviously, to talk about some of the background and other deals that have happened, including Joe Rogan. What do you think about this? I think this is, it seems like if you're a media operation, you basically position yourself as a podcast network and get acquired.
Yeah, well, I think this is the trend. And I think we're moving away from the licensing deals where you have companies like SiriusXM and Spotify, as well as other media companies and other technology companies that want to actually buy the properties and retain control over it. So I think this is what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years plus. So first of all, congratulations to Team Coco and Conan. I love this story because if you know some of the history of what happened with Conan and NBC and everyone, it seems, but I love the fact that these creators, these very talented people, are building their own things and being able to sell them. It's fantastic. I think the 5-year earnout is a little interesting that he's got to stay on for 5 years. But that'll give, I think, as the article says, that'll give Sirius some time to figure out what do we do when Conan OBrien.
Well, that's lessons learned from the Joe Rogan deal, right? I mean, that's exactly what that is.
I mean, it's the same thing about the Howard Stern deal. Sort of is the same thing, because what do we do when Howard Stern stops? And luckily, Howard Stern has not stopped, and the Sirius deal, and they've been able to grow from that. But I guess the thing that I'm taking from this is you are going to see a ton of these things happen, and I think if you believe that we're going into a recessionary environment and there's not going to be a lot of money, this is a really, really sweet time where you're going to see buyers with money be in a little bit better position, where you're going to see some of the talent bring down their asking price. Almost like we're seeing in the real estate market. We've hit a top in the real estate market. Prices are coming down. You're going to see the same thing in this market. And by the way, it's more than just podcasts, as we've discussed on this podcast many times. You're going to see this with blogs, with newsletters, events, anything. It's going to be a free-for-all because everybody's wants to build an audience. It's hard to do, so you've got money and you're going to buy it.
Well, this is, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, I think, because what I see in this, the Netflix, I think we're going to look back 5-10 years from now and look at the Netflix earnings call as sort of the ultimate moment of trigger, of the pivot, right? Which is where all of the air of the value of streaming media got sucked out of the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And, you and I have said for years, since we began this podcast, when we've talked about the opportunity for brands to acquire media companies and that media companies were out there, and we've always said, and has always been true, by the way, that, over the last 10 years, that they were bargains for the most part, that media companies weren't valued to the extent that they can or should be in terms of the value it was to a particular brand. And the idea that value has grown and grown and grown and grown, and then you can make an argument about whether it's been right-sized or whether it's been heavily discounted. I would fall on the latter, where media companies now are cheap, and you're going to start to see a lot of these companies, and we're talking about at the tectonic scale, right? The Rokus and Netflix and others that are sort of just really attractive acquisitions right now. Not Netflix per se, but Roku is a great example.
And they will be bought Roku very soon.
It's a great business that is just way undervalued at the moment. The same thing is happening at the much smaller scale, right? Where you're seeing these smaller companies become, $150 million for what Team Coco produces in the podcast is a bargain right now. And the fact that it's an earn-out deal where they don't have to spend all the money up front, they got to earn it over time. They'll more than make back their money. That's a great investment for them.
It's interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No. I was just gonna, and I'll finish by saying, so the key is if you're, you have said this, if you're a business content creator right now and you're starting a business, this is a great time to start, because there's going to be a lot of churn in the market, and when there's a lot of churn in the market, it's a great time for new entrants to it. And if you're a big brand and you're looking for media companies, now is the time to be starting to get into the buying business, because you'll probably, it is probably the best, if not the most optimal time to be looking at acquisition.
Well, yeah, it's a great, I don't know what time period we are, but if we are going into a recession, and we believe it's 2007, 2008 all over again, by 2010 and 11, it got really interesting, right? Because those people that created a media brand in 7, 8, 9 were in really well positioned because most companies didn't create stuff at that time. They batten down the hatches. Right. Which tends to happen. They don't invest. So there's a couple things going on here. So you brought up Netflix, and you said, so how many, when we talked about it on a couple shows ago, where you said Netflix and Disney Plus, they are spending billions of dollars on content. Well, a lot of that content that they're creating are not sure things. Well, you have a lot of sure things that are out there in these media companies that you could just buy. So instead of creating the content, do it, all fresh, new stuff, and you're not knowing what you have. There's so many opportunities out there for them to buy. So you're going to see a lot of that. I think those dollars go to purchasing smaller media companies instead of just creating brand new things. I think the other thing, and this is I have this in front of me because a friend sent it to me. This is an article from TechCrunch. It said YC advises founders to plan for the worst amid market teardown. This was written last week. This is really interesting because we've had so much VC funny money for the last 10 years, and now you've got a lot of this stuff is pulling back. So this is where you have companies that are building real things, that are building audiences and be able to monetize those audiences are going to be in a real sweet position if they're patient and they have time in the next 2 to 3 years. And then to your point, if you're a tech company or any kind of company, and you actually have some sideline cash, boy, make your list. Check it twice. You've got some really good opportunities to purchase at not necessarily the valuation as you would have maybe seen 6 to 12 months ago.
Exactly, and a lot of these, let's not forget, a lot of these are, acqui-hires, right?
Yes.
Where you've already got a talent deficit, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to efficiently create a content operation in your big brand, in your, if you're a tech brand or financial services or, some of the more forward-leaning sort of operators in this space. This, and you're looking to acquire a team to organically create a content strategy for you. This, looking at an existing media operation, whether or not, quite frankly, it's closely aligned. The existing publication is closely aligned to your to your brand, et cetera, because you can always change that. But finding that talent is the real key. Like with any acquisition, talent is really the number one, part of that acquisition. So it's a ripe time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, boy, maybe we're finally getting to that point that you and I have talked about for the last 7, 8, 9 years, that if you're into content marketing, part of your responsibilities is to understand M&A, especially the A part of that. So if you're listening to this and you don't understand acquisitions, you should start looking at it right now and get yourself briefed on how that works and start making your list of companies. And then if you're a creator, wonderful. It's what's interesting about this is Conan OBrien selling. Conan OBrien is Team Coco to most people, even though there's a great team behind that. So if you're a creator and your name's all over this, you should start thinking about, well, what if could your project go on without you? And the answer is probably yes, but you'll have to make some tough decisions. And you should start looking at that right now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Done and done.
Yeah.
Nothing to this.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the little dots as my waveform in the recording shows all my yes there.
That's nice that you're doing that while we're trying to have an educational, informative conversation. You're looking at the little dots.
Yeah.
Good.
Go.
Happy for you.
Let's move on to our next story here. I'm going to skip the YouTube one and let's go right to the anti.
Oh yeah, you have a take on this, so I want to hear your take.
I do have a take on this. Yeah, so this is going to come to us courtesy of martech.org. Great, by the way, site for just everything.
Do you see their tagline? Martech is marketing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have a problem with that.
I didn't know.
I don't even know if you remember, but when they came out with this, I actually ranted about that for a bit. But.
Yeah, who knew? I see this. I've been in trouble this whole time. I've been in marketing for 20 years, but I never realized that now I have
it's a goofy.
MarTech is marketing.
It's a goofy tagline. There is no doubt about that. But the content on the site is actually quite good. And they are very much trying to become and or have become arguably the Content Marketing Institute of marketing technology. You know, they got classes and consulting, and anyway, they don't need to promote their business any more than we just have. The article that we'll link to in the show notes, the headline here is Antitrust Bill could force Google, Facebook, and Amazon to shutter parts of their ad business. One employee described Google's ad business as being if like Goldman or Citibank owned the New York Stock Exchange. It might be a bit of a reach. The article opens up by saying a new Senate antitrust bill could make Google, Facebook, and Amazon divest portions of their ad businesses. The Competition and Transparency in Digital Advertising Act, it doesn't even have a cute acronym, would prevent large ad companies from participating on different sides of the ad transaction chain. It would then ban them from operating for more than one of these functions. Supply-side brokers selling publisher ad space, demand-side brokers selling ads, or ad exchanges connecting buyers and sellers. The bill introduced yesterday by Mike Lee, a Republican from Utah, and co-sponsored by Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat from Minnesota, Ted Cruz, and Richard Blumenthal. Boy, had to be a fly on the wall in those meetings. Can you imagine?
I would opt out of that.
That is a cast of characters.
I would opt out of that meeting.
I would.
You would want to be in it. I do not want to be near that. But anyways,
that is
go ahead.
You need lots of alcohol for that meeting. They banned companies earning more than $20 billion in annual digital advertising revenue from participating in the online ad ecosystem in a way that creates conflicting interests. It also imposes consumer protection rules similar to the ones governing financial trading. Under the law, businesses with more than $5 billion in digital ad transactions annually would have to A, act in the best interest of customers by getting the best bids for ad. B, provide transparency customers can verify that. C, create firewalls between their buying and selling operations, if they're allowed to operate both. And D, treat all customers the same concerning performance and information-related transactions. And it goes on to, promote the whole thing. The IAB has come out strongly against the bill. Surprise and shock there. And basically, the new law is a response to the anti-competitive practices Google has been accused of, said some of the industry analysts there. Anyway, I do have a take on this, but I wanted to get yours quickly first. But if you have such a thing,
if I have such a take,
do I have? If you have one,
my take is that if they have a smart legal team, that is Google and Facebook, which I'm sure they've paid the best of the best, this will never happen. And it probably shouldn't ever happen because the big fly on the wall, if we're talking about flies on the wall, is TikTok. TikTok is growing their digital advertising at an immense rate, way faster than Google or Facebook, maybe in their heyday they dreamed of. But they'll say if they can make the position that digital advertising is included in social media advertising, search advertising, if it's all the same bucket, there's no way. I mean, you could actually say, oh, well, shoot, you got Snap, you got Pinterest, you got Microsoft. We're all participating in this thing. You could add 10 more companies, but really the biggest player is not even in this article. At least future player, TikTok. I believe TikTok is going to be the larger from a digital advertising business than Google or Facebook, in my opinion. So,
agreed on that. But I think the targets here are clear, which is really, because with the dollar limits that you're talking about here, there's really, there are only three, right? And it's arguable right now. Google, Facebook, and Amazon. I mean, that's kind of it. When it comes to this, Amazon really shouldn't be a part of this because they're,
why?
The way their ad system, because the way their ad system works is really only on their platform, is only on the Amazon.com platform. So they're not providing ad exchanges for third-party websites and sort of tools for publishers to monetize on the buy side. You see, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
In other words, I can't use Amazon ads on my website. And so I would argue that Amazon really shouldn't be part of this. I mean, I know there's probably some nuanced arguments that you could probably make for them being on this side, but it's really Google and Facebook here, right? And really Google more than anybody else, because what they're arguing is that these companies have they have basically sell-side software, which is the ability to sell ads and ad space. Then they've got an exchange where you can actually go bid on placement of those things, and then you've got the buy-side software where you can the self-service tools where you can go basically go buy and arbitrage those things. And so Google has a huge share of those things because that's its entire business. I mean, that's the what you're talking about is 90% of how Google makes money is exactly this. And so the question is that when we think about this, is this going to go anywhere, right? Does this have anything to do with privacy? No, it does not. B, does this have anything to do with really antitrust and opening up competition? I dare say not really, because who's gonna come and compete in this, right? Who's really gonna come and compete against this? Because those solutions already exist. They exist. People just aren't there. So in other words, opening this up and saying, Google, you can't do this anymore. You have to basically, divest yourself of, let's say the ad exchange, which would never happen, but let's just say that it did. Google, you're going to have to divest yourself of the ad exchange, and you're going to have to let other companies basically handle the marketplace of your ad space. Well, yes, some other people would do that, but Google still benefits. It's still their ad space. You know what I mean? It's like they're having somebody else sell it. You can argue that they might not be as profitable. They would have to pay a fee. There would be competitors involved here. This is just a mess. I think this is just a mess. And honestly, and it's especially comes when I start to see the folks that are in charge of this. This is all positioning and very little meat here, and I don't think this is going anywhere.
It's interesting, and plus, definitions are really important with this kind of an issue.
Right.
Let's just take Google for example. Are we talking about search marketing here and search marketing dollars? And I mean, you just talked about the ad networks, but if we just talk about Google has this monopoly in search, well, that's going to change really quickly as we get more into voice. Where you have many new players, including Google, including Apple, including Amazon. So how does that work? So I think that the technology is changing much faster than we think. It's hard to define what the monopoly is over. You could have said it very clearly 10 years ago. Oh, yeah. Search, you go to a website, they control that. They've got all the relationships. They control the whole distribution system. Now it's a little fuzzy. I think you can probably argue your way out of any big issue with this one. So
I think so too. And this is such a core issue for Google. Ain't no way this is going places. There's too much. There are other things to argue on antitrust for Google and Facebook and Amazon specifically, that there are parts of their business that they should probably divest themselves of, but the ad exchange isn't one of them. I mean, because they're not going down without that is a hill they will die.
Well, hats off to the bipartisan group that put this together. But let's all be honest, we know that there are more important bipartisan issues that they should be focusing on. So let's right.
So anyways, yeah, there is that. There is that. All right, so let's now move to our rants and raves section. Where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave that makes us feel like we have to sit and watch the Johnny Depp trial, or where we can actually skip it and move on to something else and go see Top Gun.
Oh, yes, I've heard really good reviews.
Oh my gosh, apparently it's just amazing. We're gonna actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're actually gonna go. They have a thing here with AMC Theaters now has a thing where you can rent out a theater. You have to go in off times and usually off days, but for like $500, you and up to 40 of your closest friends, like you can literally it can be 2 of you or 5 of you or 10 of you, we're going to get a little group together
nice.
and pitch in because it's like $500. It's like $500 to go.
And you're gonna do this for Top Gun, or just.
Yeah, we're going to do it for Top Gun. Yeah.
Do they make popcorn too during this time?
They do the whole thing. Yeah. They basically, it's like you're going to the movie theater, but it's only you and your little family in the theater.
That is a wonderful idea.
It's a pretty cool idea, I have to say. Yeah.
And by the way, when was the last time we heard Tom Cruise and good reviews? I mean, I'm really excited about this. Since maybe Magnolia.
Tom Cruise makes good movies. His movies are usually pretty damn good.
He is. I mean, when people think of action star, you have to put Tom Cruise. At the top.
I mean, yeah, he's a complete nut job. But other than that, he makes amazing.
Didn't you know him personally?
I know. No, I've never met him. I've never met the man. I've never met the man.
I didn't know. I thought that since you lived in that area and you were involved in things, I didn't know.
I do have stories about the particular religion he follows, but that's a whole other story for.
Can we do a special episode on that sometime? We know that nobody would listen to. We would
get lawsuits. Oh my God, I can't. No, the answer to that is no. Oh, come on.
Okay, send tweets. This old marketing hashtag. Ask for special episode.
Yeah, and don't tag if you know what we're talking about.
No. I shouldn't have brought it up.
Don't tag it. I
shouldn't have brought it up.
I don't need the hassle.
Shame on me. This is terrible. Anyways, rants and raves. What do we got?
Rants and raves. You want to go first, or shall I go
I've got
first?
a couple things. I want it more than anything else. I want to get this in the show notes because I think it's really important. A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz's 2022 State of the Crypto Report came out. This is on May 17th. There's 5 key takeaways. You can read them for yourself. I mean, they talk about the fact that we are absolutely in a bear market, crypto winter, whatever you want to talk about. But there's one really interesting chart that really impacted me so you can get a feel for where we are. And this is under number 5. And number 5 is, yes, it's still early. And the talk here is, it says, we estimate there are somewhere between 7 million and 50 million active Ethereum users today. And they go through and they plot this, Robert, against total internet users. And basically Ethereum's chart up looks almost identical to overall internet users from back in 1990. And you'll see that we look like we're 6 to 7 years in. From like internet time basis, so that would put us at around 1996 or 1997 if we're looking at Web3. So just fast forward to where we're headed here. It's still ramping up. There's still a lot of potential. You got a lot of people working on projects. I think actually the fact that crypto's down quite a bit gets people focused on working the right projects, focusing on the right benefits. So I see a lot of great things coming for crypto and Web3 in the future. So anyways, you can go through this yourself and see how early days we are. So that's the one. I also put this one in the show notes, and this is from our friends at Creator Bread. I love that name, creatorbread.com. They reviewed ConvertKit's.
Is it BRD? Just
spell out bread. Creator Bread. They focused on our good friends at ConvertKit released their 2022 State of the Creator Economy report, and there's a bunch of takeaways, and you can go through them yourself. But as I just told somebody on an interview, they asked me, what's the number one determinant of success when it comes to content creation and content entrepreneurship? And I said, full-time content creators make it when they give it enough time. It's always time. And I think people don't realize it. You think there's a magic pill like, oh, I've got a particular content niche, or I focused on TikTok versus blogging. You can look at all those other things, and none of those are statistically significant except for the fact that those people that give it more than really 2 to 3 years are the ones that are successful. Most people have stopped before then. So this report from ConvertKit plays that out as well. So those are the two that we will put in the show notes. And how about you?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely go check that out. That's really interesting. I mean, consistency, right? Which is what ultimately time ends up being, right? Which is, it's not just, a binge time, but it's sort of like time over the long haul.
Yeah, right? Whatever your consistency and your frequency is, it's 2 times a week, it's once a week, it's 3 times a week, and you do that we're coming out with our creator economy content entrepreneur study probably in the next 4 weeks here, and we found that 17 months was the time period. It basically takes 17 months till somebody sees some kind of financial success. It may be longer, but that's the number that we got from the research. So let's go with that one. So a year and a half you need. And you and I have talked to a lot of creators and a lot of content marketers as well. And they're like, hey, we've given it 6 months. We've given it 9 months. And we're like, okay, well, you just started. Good for you. You're barely just finding out who you are and who your audience is and what your content tilt is at that point. You don't even know yet. And
it's not a shortcut.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love reading up on Mr. Beast. Probably the number one YouTube creator in the world, where he'll talk about his first 100 episodes were practice.
Yeah. That's interesting, yeah.
And now he's, making billions of dollars a year, and good for him, and he's got a burger chain and everything else, but it takes a long time. Just like, you know what? Every other business out there.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Exactly.
All right, what do you got, my friend?
All right, I got two quick things, which is one, just in continuing our theme of how politicians are just being stupid and silly and ridiculous these days. There I said it without saying it about, what's going on in the world right now. This is just a quick rant, which comes to us courtesy of Media Post, which we'll link to in the show notes. Basically, the headline is that the Ohio, and I'm not going to pick on Ohio, but Ohio, here we go. That's Ohio, and the Attorney General there can proceed with their claim that Google search is a common carrier, which, I read that headline, I went, really? 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 So the article opens and says a state court judge in Ohio is allowing Attorney General David Yost to proceed with an effort to prohibit Google from prioritizing its services or products in search results. Think about that for a minute. Just, the ruling issued Tuesday. Delaware County Common Pleas Court Judge James Shuck declined to dismiss Yost's claim that Google search engine is a common carrier. The court believes at this stage of the proceeding that the state should have the ability to take discovery, develop its case, and present evidence to support its claim, which is basically the judge saying not no. It doesn't necessarily mean that the judge agrees with it. It just basically says, all right, you can continue this ridiculousness. Basically, what the claim is that Google is saying that they're saying that Google basically promotes its own products in search results, and pointed to a study that says around 65% of searches on Google desktop and mobile ended without clicks to a different company. And of course, we've talked about this ad nauseum on this show, which is ostensibly that Google is pulling in a lot of content into the search results itself, where if you ask, for example, if you go say, hey, how much, how many cups is 8 ounces, you're going to get the answer in the search results. You're not going to get, a link to a chef's site. And all of that because Google said exactly this, right? Which is because so many people seek factual information, currency conversions, weather forecasts, as opposed to links in other companies. This is just ridiculous at its face. And as much as you might not like, and there are parts of this that I don't like either, the ability for Google to sort of scrape content and not have results actually that link to your particular site, using the argument that Google is a common carrier like the phone company or like the electric company and shouldn't prioritize itself accordingly is just the silliest argument I've ever heard. I think the most silly argument I've seen in the last month came from a Supreme Court justice, but the second one is this one. So there is really just a lot of silliness here, and I wanted to point it out because it's likely to get a little more media attention. It's just something to pay attention to for the short life that it should have. The second is more of just a question, right? So this goes back to thinking about our little conspiracy theory here. I just have questions, which is, so we talked about at the predictions show at the very beginning of this year, we talked about acquisitions and how acquisitions were going to become a big thing. And there was a company we talked about. At the time, the company didn't have a name. And it was this company that had been put together by two ex-Disney and Hollywood sort of, I guess, players would be the right way to say it. They have since named the company. It's called Candle Media, and just their latest acquisition caught me, as I was doing research for the show, just yet another acquisition. And literally within the last year, the company's only been around for the last year and a half. And has only been really named, has had a name for itself in the last, call it 4 months, 5-6 months, maybe. It's a little hard to know exactly when it is. Everything that's out there, from the Crunchbase article that it has on it, from the Bloomberg, basically is wrong about the number of acquisitions it's had. It has there's no address listed for the company. There's no physical address listed for this company. There is a couple of social media profiles. They have a LinkedIn profile and a Twitter profile that the only thing they promote is the acquisitions themselves. And this is a company that in the last year has acquired Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon's media company, for $500 million. Moonbug Entertainment, which is Cocomelon and Blippi, which is $3 billion. Faraway Road Productions, which was the Netflix movie production house, which was $50 million acquisition. Exile Content Studio, which is a huge Spanish language content media company. One Animation, which is sort of an animation house that makes YouTube videos and some other things. And then literally just this week has acquired Attention, ATTN, the social media content that makes tons of videos for TikTok with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all sorts of, they do sort of a public service campaign. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6 acquisitions of meaningful acquisitions into the, let's call it sub $5 billion range within the last year and a half or so. And there's no website for this company. It's a fascinating thing to me that this is all going on. And there, at the time, back in the prediction show, I had predicted that this company was sort of silently working in the background to maybe become the thing that Apple acquires. And I'm still maintaining that they might be building up this media company to sort of flip at some point, building up the house to flip it. But my question is to who? And I'm just fascinated by this whole little story that doesn't seem to be getting a lot of coverage at all. But it's like this, this is the biggest media company you've never heard of, and it's just a fascinating thing for me.
I think they know who they're going. I'm sure they know.
I absolutely. This is a very considered strategy. What I love about it is that there's no they're yelling from the rooftops on social media, but there's no marketing. They're literally doing zero. There's no website. There's no, they're hiring people. They're the Hollywood Reporter and Daily Variety report on people that they're hiring, but you go look them up and there's no physical address for this place. There's no website for this thing. So they're just acquiring these companies for what purpose? And I have to think it's to, at some point, just polish up this rock and sell it off to somebody. But the question is who?
Whatever it is, they're well funded.
Well funded.
Because,
yes, well funded.
And focused. I like this company. Whatever it is, I'm in.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. What do you got going on this weekend?
What do you got this week? You're back home. You're working again?
I'm working again. Yeah, I'm getting all the emails read and sent off and all that good. That's the only part about going on vacation. All the dread.
Oh yeah,
emails.
Everything you gotta.
But anyways, things are. We're working on a lot of stuff. We got that research study coming out. We'll do that pretty shortly, and working on a lot of new ideas and thinking about CEX for next year and all kinds of fun stuff. So, and you, my friend, what do you got going on?
I am going to be working my little tail off because business is cooking. Next week will be the week that I announce my little thing. So you can stay tuned for that. So we've got that cooking as well. And otherwise, looking forward to a bit of a long weekend and getting out from behind a screen and maybe sitting behind a barbecue and with a pair of tongs and turning a steak over while I drink a glass of red wine. That is I like that. That is my immediate
Here's goal. To everyone getting together with family, enjoying, being present, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, everybody, that's it. We're going to sign off. And in the meantime, if you want all the goodness of this podcast show notes and all the links that we talked about, including all the other 772,000 episodes. Just get on over to our website, won't you? thisoldmarketing.site. It's great there. And remember, hashtag us up. Special thanks this week to Annie Schiffman, who is at Annie Schiff on Twitter, and Heath Dingwell. Heath, loving the little news roundup that you're doing every week. Thank you for that. And all the other folks who actually contributed some ideas on the hashtag this week on Twitter, continue that. We love it. It's very important for us as we put together the show to get your input into what we should be covering. But other than that, until we meet again next week, just remember it's your story to tell. Tell it well. See you next week on This Old Marketing.